Hello everyone, this is Tactical Lich here and welcome back to Total War Warhammer 3 online multiplayer. Today in this battle submitted by Mr. Tefel, we have a game between the Tomb Kings and Cathay. Both are quite broken factions due to their specific mechanic. However, both players here, Mr. Tefel on the Tomb King side and our old friend, Taiwanese YouTuber me, on the Cathay side. They're both experienced players in the community, and as a result, they're both bringing a rather honorable build. No toxic ammo healing on the Tomb King side, and on the Cathay side, there are no quad cannons, which I despise to the core. So, for the Tomb King's army build, we have a front line of skeleton warriors protected by a bunch of skeleton spears on the rear and in the flank. And in the middle, it seems that Mr. Tefel is determined to challenge Cathay in artillery, bringing 2 Caskets of Souls and a single unit of Bone Giant in the middle, really going all in on that artillery firepower. And on the far side in the forest, there is even more artillery firepower, with 2 Ushabtis with great bows and a single Sepulchral Stalkers protecting them. Now, for the leadership, we have Arkan the Black coming in with the Skeleton Summons and also Spirit Leech. There's also the Liber Mortis for that extra physical resistance protection. On the other side of the battlefield, with the Cathay army led by our friend me here, the front line is quite staple with a bunch of Jade Warriors holding the front, flanked by a bunch of Peasant Long Spears, and at the back more Peasant Long Spears and a single unit of Celestial Dragon God. In the middle, we have 3 Crane Gunners, some devastating long-range firepower. After all, it is Cathay. In the skies, there's a single Sky Lantern providing the Harmony buff in a safe place, and also a single Terracotta Sentinel for that anti-large dueling power. For the Cathay leadership, there's a single Shugengan Lord with the Lore of Yin with Ancestral Warriors, Blossom Wind, and Storm of Shadows protected by a Great Longma Rider. And that's it for the army builds. Now let's get this show on the road. There are multiple interesting elements to Mr. Tefel's tactics today. With double Casket of Souls and also a single Bone Giant, the Tomb Kings successfully outranged the Cathay artillery, which are mostly Crane Gunners in this situation, forcing them to push forward. And on the side in the forest, Mr. Tefel sneakily deploying all these Ushabti with great bows with the cover of the vegetation. They're as if almost Vanguard deployed artillery. And with this positioning, they can easily shoot into the flanks of the Cathay army here, with the lack of mobility as these Longma Riders being distracted by the artillery in the middle, being shot up by the crossfire of Ushabtis, as well as strained away by Spirit Leech. The Great Longma Riders cannot challenge these Ushabti with great bows, especially with the Sepulchral Stalker support. And now the Ushabtis will be able to fire into the flanks and rear of the Crane Gunners and other Cathay infantry, chipping away their health with maximum efficiency, as the penetration of the artillery can easily strike through multiple unit models, doing maximum damage. At the same time, Sepulchral Stalkers pushes forward with a couple volleys from their armor-piercing magic missiles. The Terracotta Sentinel quickly got half of its HP bar blasted away. Now, another benefit of these artillery on the side is that the Crane Gunners cannot easily shift around targets to shoot at. Right now, they're focusing down the poor Casket of Souls here, successfully sniping it out, but they cannot shift immediately towards these Ushabti with great bows due to the angling problem. They will be forced to turn around the entire formation and start firing. So in the end, they were forced to redirect the firepower at the Bone Giant, which has a lot more HP and can tank out their damage for quite some time. Speaking of which, we have a lot of backline engagement here. Ancestral Warriors being summoned, with ethereal units, including these guys, getting complete 100% armor piercing. They're extremely effective in bringing down armored units like these constructs. Combined with the Crane Gunners and the Shugengan Lord diving into combat, they're doing significant damage to the Bone Giant. Forcing off the Casket of Souls as well with the elite infantry, the Tomb King's artillery were silenced for a while, but not these artillery Ushabtis, as they were away from this disturbed backline. Now the Crane Gunners are forced to turn around, slowly taking damage in the process to aim their sights at the Ushabtis. But right now, the Crane Gunners doesn't seem to have a lot of upper hand here, due to partly the forest cover and also a bit of a Casket of Soul fire support, routing some of these Crane Gunners. As for the front line, the infantry of Cathay do not have a lot of offensive power, so they were stuck on a bunch of skeleton chaff, unable to support the fight of the other units in the backline of the Tomb King's army. leaving these great Longma Riders isolated and dragged down by skeleton spears. Shuken Gunlord being pushed away by the skeleton spears as well. She will be taking off to the skies and look for a better opportunity to re-engage into combat. But right now, great Longma Riders dive down trying to shut down this Cascade of Souls, but double skeleton spears comes in, surround them again. And don't forget the Bone Giant voicing his disapproval of these flying cavalry, blasting away some of them with the giant arrows, taking down a few models in the process. Now we're gonna shift a lot around different parts of the battlefield as the battlefield is very divided. The Great Bulls have taken substantial damage and are now hiding in the forest once again. But replacing their missile disruption, the Ushabti summons has been dropped in. The Crane Gunners are completely compromised, another Crane Gunner being routed, the first one barely able to regroup, and the Cathay infantry failing to protect the final one with the Ushabti plowing straight through their ranks. Of course, in the skies, the Sky Lantern is still providing that fire support, and more importantly, the Harmony buff, giving the OP melee defense buff to all these surrounding Jade Warriors and Peasants, giving them a much better time fighting a whole bunch of Skeleton Warriors. On the far side, the Bone Giant was free again, as the Dragon-Blooded Shugen Gunlord is tied down by a whole bunch of spears, an Ancestral Warrior being summoned to force back the Cascade of Souls. That was a successful deep strike, doing enough damage to drag down the Cascade's morale into crumbling territory, and with that, the Cascade is gone. Although that eliminates a devastating firepower, but that also leaves the Ancestral Warriors without a good target, only engaging some skeleton chaff. On the other side, being threatened by the Bone Giant's firepower, the Terracotta Sentinel, despite taking massive damage throughout the combat, will be peeled off, chasing straight after the Bone Giant, hoping to silence one last bit of that long-range Tomb King's artillery. While the Ushabtis are still hiding in the forest, biding their time, actually shooting at whatever good target they can get their hands on. And their closest victims are these Crane Gunners, who are trying to reposition to get a line of sight to fire at the Ushabtis, but unfortunately they will be routed before they can do anything. Back to the front line, most of the skeleton infantry are gone. At the back line, the Tomb Kings are gaining an upper hand as the Dragon-Blooded Shugen Gunlord, after multiple Spirit Leeches throughout the battle, well, she is taking off for now, especially with Arkan the Black chasing after her, while a bunch of skeleton spears, well, they cannot catch up to these mounted characters. In the skies, the Longma Riders are also routing away. Terracotta Sentinel probably should have just started chasing at the Bone Giant instead of trying fruitlessly to save the Dragon-Blooded Shugen Gunlord, as the Terracotta Sentinel taking damage from both Spirit Leeches and the Bone Giant's artillery firepower. Now, with the Jade Warriors finally freed up from the skeleton combat, they are able to push forward, but what awaits them is more skeleton spears. This is a chaff versus chaff battle with an endless horde of spears for the Cathay peasants to cut through. Finally, Crane Gunners regrouped and start shooting at the more valuable targets of the Tomb King's army, namely Arkan the Black, but they themselves are being shot at as well. The Ushabtis of Great Bows focus fire onto the Crane Gunners and routing one of the last artillery fire from the Cathay faction. With this loss, the Cathay army can no longer deal with the Ushabtis with great bows. That leaves only the Sky Lantern as the ranged firepower of the Cathay army, providing a whole bunch of mobile harmony effect roaming around the battlefield, giving all these Jade Warriors buffs. However, one summon into the rear and flank of these Jade Warriors puts them into wavering territory and probably soon will be routed. At the far back here, Terracotta Sentinel still desperately chasing after the Bone Giant, a whole bunch of skeleton spears going on a chase behind him as well, dropping a Spirit Leech from Arkan the Black, a simple yet very effective spell, slowly wearing down the health of the Terracotta Sentinel. Ushabti with great bows, after taking massive damage from the Crane Gunner focus fire, they'll be emerging from the forest, positioning again, and now they'll be targeting the one last powerhouse of the Cathay army, well, the Terracotta Sentinel. Liber Mortis is activated, giving all the skeleton spears physical resistance. The Bone Giant also enjoys that, but it will be running out of the zone of the ability, and unfortunately taking some damage from the Giant's Cathay Clay Head. But good news for the Tomb Kings is Jade Warriors, Peasant Long Spears, and the Celestial Dragon Guards are routed in a massive chain break, with their leader, the Dragon-Blooded Shugen Gunlord, routing from the battlefield. Their leadership no longer holds up. and that makes them extra vulnerable to all the fear and terror effects coming from the undead units. Without any infantry distractions, the last bit of that Terracotta Sentinel's health will be drained away, combined with the focus fire from all those Ushabtis. With one last tick from that Spirit Leech damage, the mightiest defender of Cathay falls to the ground. With the last of the Cathay's powerhouse gone, Tomb Kings entirely dominates the battlefield now. So now let us fast forward as the Ushabtis finish off the Celestial Dragon Gods, and the rest of the Jade Warriors will be surrounded by enemy units. Arkan also chasing off routing enemy units, making sure they won't be coming back. That leaves Cathay with only the Sky Lantern and a couple Jade Warriors to work with. Arkan ramming into the Jade Warriors and dumping some skeletons on top of them. Spirit Leech draining away the health of some tattered Jade Warriors, a real charge from the Skeleton Spears, and then Arkan the Black going into combat as well. The Sky Lantern falls from the crossfire of Ushabtis as well as the Bone Giant, and all that's left is the Tomb King's victorious cackle on the battlefield. GG to both players here, and massive thanks to Mr. Tufel for sending in this replay. As you can see here, these expensive artillery, the caskets and the Bone Giant didn't really do too much damage, but instead they acted as a distraction artillery, allowing the Ushabtis to dish out the pain against the enemy. And that is because of the split deployment. With the Bone Giant and caskets deployed in the main formation, the Crane Gunners will be focusing them down, while the Ushabtis deploying way far from the main formation. That means that the Crane Gunners cannot easily switch their targets against the Ushabtis, and that means me here with the Grand Cathay Crane Gunners, they will have to choose between targets to shoot at. Either shoot at the main formation, caskets and Bone Giant, or they will spend like half a day slowly turning around their entire unit formation, taking massive damage in the process, as both artillery formations, the caskets and Bone Giants as well as the Ushabtis, will be bombarding their formations at the same time. In the end, this Grand Cathay army decided to shoot down the caskets and the Bone Giant. Not a bad choice, but that also allowed the Ushabtis flanking around with their artillery fire to shoot down the poor Crane Gunners, picking them apart. And without these Crane Gunners in the late game, there is no way the Grand Cathay can shut down both the Ushabtis and the Bone Giant, as the Terracotta Sentinel has taken massive damage throughout the process due to the Sepulchral Stalkers and the Bone Giant firepower. Of course, skeletons here not exactly doing the damage, but they did their job, which is pinning down all these Jade Warriors with their unroutable trait, buying time for the backline to shut down the Great Longmarch Riders and the rest of the artillery to fire without being hindered by the Cathay melee infantry. Arkan the Black doing a lot of damage with those Spirit Leech spams, draining the health of Longmarch Riders, Terracotta Sentinel, and even the Dragon-Blooded Shugengan Lord. The Terracotta Sentinel actually did an exceptionally poor job, only 300 gold value, as it was not engaged in a lot of good targets, only fighting mostly skeleton, and spending the later stage of battle chasing down the Bone Giant. The Great Longmarch Riders did some okay damage, but being pinned by a whole bunch of skeletons, it was not able to shut down the Tomb King's artillery, especially with the infantry support pinned down by skeleton bodies. As for the elite Celestial Dragon God, it was bombarded by a whole bunch of Casket of Souls, taking significant damage before it can even engage into melee combat. Crane Gunners did a little bit better, these two earning back their value, as they managed to snipe out the Casket of Souls, but the damage from the caskets were done to the elite infantry. While the Jade Warriors got some impressive kill counts, just not a lot of damage here, as most of the stuff they were fighting were just skeleton chaff. Same goes for the Peasant Long Spears. Definitely not getting any luck with the Blossom Wind spell cast. The Ancestral Warriors though did some nice damage to the artillery of Tomb Kings, but that's basically it for them. And of course, Sky Lantern, mostly there to provide that harmony buff, didn't do too much damage. And yeah, that's basically it for today's battle. I hope viewers you enjoy it, and if you do, remember to hit the subscribe button to receive updates every time I upload a new video. And if you want to showcase your very own battle replays, feel free to drop by my Discord or send me an email with the replay file attached. I'll be sure to check them out. And yeah, that's basically it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich, signing out.